Hi, I'm Calibe Thompson, publisher at Island Origins Magazine, and welcome to Island Origins Live on Jamaicans.com. Before we begin, I invite you to like this video, share it with a friend who might enjoy the subject matter, and follow our pages on your favorite social media platforms at Island Origins. On a previous episode, we journeyed with Jamaicans.com founder Xavier Murphy to reconnect with his African ancestry. This time around, we're learning about his newfound connection with his Asian family. Let's get started.
My lost son. This is a letter that Holiday sent to the government to ask to find his family in Jamaica, but the government failed. Yeah, he just told that no one lives in that address anymore.
Can you put that envelope back up? Can I see that envelope? That is my address, mommy. That is our address. Isn't that our address? He lived on that avenue. You could tell Uncle Hermie lived on that avenue.
For over 10 years, Xavier Murphy had attempted to find his long-lost uncle in China. This August, he read a story online and discovered a service called My China Roots. After years of trying to find his connections on his own, Xavier found that this company was able to locate his relative in fewer than 2 months. Joining me this evening is Xavier Murphy, founder of Jamaicans.com. Xavier, how are you?
I'm good, Calibe. How are you?
I am pretty good myself. So let's jump right into it. The way you told me this story started is with some family folklore, right? So tell us first the folklore that you were hearing about growing up in your life in Jamaica.
So growing up, with the family, we kept hearing that we have this uncle that lives in China. So I'm like, uncle that lives in China. It just didn't add up. My grandmother's first child. So let me kind of back up a bit. My grandmother's descendants are Scottish. So my grandmother is a little fair-skinned. Let me explain that first. So my grandmother had this child with a Chinese shopkeeper, and his name was Hermidi. And the shopkeeper took the child. Again, I don't know the story behind what happened with my grandmother. Don't have the details, but took the child back to China. So no one had any contact with him. Subsequently, or later on, my grandmother got married to my grandfather, and they had their children. And so we had this uncle that we kept hearing about, this Chinese uncle that lives in China, but no one knows. All we had was a name.
Okay, so that was the inception of the story, and you decided for more than 10 years you were trying to find this uncle. Why was it so important? Like for me, sometimes I hear about family and I start running in the other direction, that you haven't heard of in a long time. Why was it important for you to find your uncle and see if you could connect with that side of your family who isn't actually blood related to you? They're related to your...
He is blood related through my grandmother.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes, okay.
Yes, he's blood related through my grandmother.
Yes.
So what happened is we started having a family reunion in 2004. Was our very first family reunion, and for some reason I became the head cook and bottle washer who arranged this whole family reunion. And subsequently,
sounds regular for you,
yeah. and so we started to write out the family tree at that first family reunion. And again, Hermidi Shimkong comes up. It's an uncle that we have out there. Who is he, and so on. So at that point, filling out the family tree, I said, you know what, let me kind of start at a high level to search for Hermidi Shimkong. And so my search first took me to a friend of mine who said she is in the Chinese Benevolent Association in Jamaica. And so I sent her some information. And this was via Facebook. And so she did, you know, she did what she could. She didn't find anything. You know, I soon realized that the way I was looking for this was probably the wrong way, but, you know, nothing was found at that point. And then, you know, I kind of let it go, but it's still in the back of my mind. And every reunion, as we fill the family tree out, this Hermidi Shimkong is still there. And, you know, we have everyone kind of filled out on the tree, but he's still there. And so that led me to continue.
So it was this deep curiosity between both from you and your known family in Jamaica.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was that deep curiosity, and I did a second search. I did. Mm-hmm. So there is also another resource that was online in a Facebook page where they say, listen, put the name of your family here, and we will help you and try and find, you know, this again, it was focused on Chinese Jamaicans, and we'll go ahead and help you with that. Put the name in, put the detail I have, found really no one got back to me. They said they would, but no one really got back or found anything. I think it was a little difficult. They probably did a high level search and found nothing.
Right. And then a few months ago, you identified a company called My China Roots to help you with your search because you weren't getting anywhere on your own. And their services, according to my research, includes research, translation, travel, and assistance with connecting with Chinese family. So we actually have the pleasure of having two of the people at My China Roots join us. We have Robert Hugh and Clotilde, who we're going to call Chloe. Welcome to the show, guys. How are you?
Well, Robert is actually with the CBA.
The Chinese Benevolent. Oh, Benevolent. Okay.
Yes, we would like to have him all for ourselves at My China Roots, but sadly.
It's all about connection, so it works together, right? So thank you guys for joining us. So Clotilde, let me ask you then, when someone comes along and wants to connect with someone in their family in China, how does the research aspect of that work go?
Mm-hmm. Sure. So we get people contact us from all over the world, and no matter where they come from, there are two key questions that we ask them. The first one being, do you have information about your ancestors or your family in Chinese? Because even though they may have adopted westernized names like Philip or Hamidi once they moved away, no one would know them under those names back in China. So it's crucial to get the Chinese names. The second thing that we need is names of ancestral places or their birth town, if you like. So when Xavier first contacted us, he knew that his uncle had gone back to Hong Kong. So I was initially a little bit concerned because when people mention Hong Kong or Macau or Canton, really, in most cases, the ancestors would just have been passing through. So on the one hand, I was concerned. On the other hand, I knew that there are a lot of resources in Jamaica, such as the resources that have been compiled by the Chinese Benevolent Association. So I was also feeling quite, excited at the prospect.
So the Chinese Benevolent Association has been mentioned a few times here. So let's talk to you, Robert, about how you have been kind of connecting people like Xavier with services like Clotilde's. What's your role in all of this?
Well, the Chinese Benevolent Association in Kingston is responsible for the Chinese cemetery here on Walton Park Road, and we have about 3,500 people buried there. And they had kept fairly meticulous records as to their Chinese name, their English name, their village, and even some relatives there, all in Chinese handwritten script. And about 7-8 years ago, we undertook the task of translating and transcribing that all into a searchable database, so that now on the web through our cbajamaica.com website, you can find some links. And from the luxury of your living room, you can do an online search if you have their surname, some other part of their name, the rough time when they died. And in most cases, it will give you the Chinese character for their name and the ancestral village, and a map showing you where we've managed to locate those villages. We traced back, or we found about references to about 400 villages, all very close to the Hong Kong area, but in the new territories or over in the over the border in mainland China. And we've managed to find about 300 of those on the modern day maps. So if you have that initial information about a direct ancestor or one of their relatives. So for instance, if your grandfather might have been buried in a regular cemetery in Jamaica, but a brother or sister was buried in the Chinese cemetery, at least you'd be able to get the village name and start doing your search from there.
So this does sound like it would have been difficult for you to try and do all of this kind of sleuthing on your own.
So let me tell you how the CBA came back into the picture, because keep in mind, I did go to the CBA through a friend of mine at one point. So every time I meet with my aunties, I try and get pieces of the puzzle for her Midi Shimkong. What does that mean? I would say, what father's name? I started to get father's name, the father's shop. Where did the father have his shop? Who connected with him? That type of stuff. And even China roots, my China roots prompted me to ask some additional questions. Do you have did you send a picture? Did they send a picture of his mom to him and so forth? Which ironically, yes, a picture was sent to him, which he had lost, but that's another story. So the father is where the connection to the CBA comes in, because my China roots reached out and said, listen, give me the father's information. And my China roots reached out to the CBA, who now had the grave of my uncle's father and the village, and I let them put the pieces together. Let me not give up, but that's how the pieces started to come together. And I'll say this: I thought I was looking for someone who had probably passed. Okay, and I gave them the information, and once they had that information, within, I think it was 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. They were able to locate my uncle alive and well. I spoke to him yesterday on Zoom.
All right, hold on. You're going too fast now, Xavier. Hold on. All right. So I'm going to ask Robert and Chloe. You can kind of bounce this back and forth, but how do you? I don't know if Xavier's experience is the typical experience when you're looking for relatives in China. Was this the first time you two had worked together?
No, in fact, the CBA had come in contact with my China roots several years ago, and at some of the Chinese, Jamaican, and Hakka conferences held in Toronto and New York, we had talked about each other's work and resources, etc. And in fact, in my case as well, my China roots was able to help me find some of my relatives over there. So it's been a long-standing and close relationship. What I think is very interesting is that in the last 5 to 10 years, so much more genealogical information has become accessible, either because it's been scanned, digitized, and indexed online. For example, the Mormon data through FamilySearch.org, or even in our case, the CBA. It was only about 5-6 years ago that we were able to digitize our information Prior to that, it was a much more labor-intensive and much more difficult process to find just one name. Now you can, with a couple clicks of the keyboard, find all 50-odd people that came from a certain village of that with that surname. So you can start finding your more distant relatives fairly easily. But even since then, My China Roots has gone and developed significantly greater in-house resources, and I'll let Claude describe those to you. But worldwide, there is quite a resurgence of interest and a lot more data available, both on just the domestic Jamaican resources, now going back to, everything is indexed back to about 1880 in Jamaica. And before that, the scans exist back to the 1600s. It's just a bit more tedious to find them and scroll through them.
So, Chloe, in your research or helping people to find their own ancestry, are you most often going through genealogy or this kind of investigative look at graves and connect dots? And like I imagine those things where you put thumbtacks in the thing on the board and put the strings all over the place. I'm sure you're
that way. Yes. No, it's honestly really fascinating work. And once you start, as Robert will attest to this, it's you get sucked into the rabbit hole. Really, the work we do really depends on your unique family situation. It also depends on which country your family may have moved to. But I have to say, in Xavier's case, we were very lucky. Typically, there are a lot of challenges involved. So in China, a lot of place names have changed. So even though you may have found a tombstone of a Chinese Jamaican ancestor, the place may not match exactly what it's called today. So that's partly why the CBA has compiled this place database. And we're doing something similar at My China Roots that covers all of southern China, where most overseas Chinese came from. But yes, we were quite lucky in Xavier's case because, number one, the village that Hamidi's father came from was still standing, even though it was in a very modernized urban area of Shenzhen. And the second reason we were lucky was that his uncle is a bit of a celebrity, a local celebrity. So when we started digging into, what online resources there are about this area, we found several articles that mentioned a veteran war hero who had fought against the Japanese during World War II, because Japan had actually occupied China, some parts of China. And not only that, but the birth year matched that of Xavier's uncle's birth year. And it mentioned that he was mixed race, that he was half Chinese and half Jamaican, but the exact mix was not clear. So this is quite a special case, if you like. Usually our work involves doing a lot of research online to figure out the right place. And then we would send somebody to visit the place and track down relatives, take photographs, interview people to ask them, do you know about this one person who would have left in the 1940s and he went to San Francisco or he went to Trinidad or wherever. So this is kind of a special case.
Right. Yeah. No private investigative services needed, right? One of the things that I came across on your website that fascinated me, Xavier was just talking about building a family tree, and in digging around on your website, I found this concept of supus. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Right. This elaborate Chinese family tree where they actually tell you kind of a bio of each of the people who are in the family. Can you talk more about that? Is that something that is part of Chinese culture all over the country and every family has it? Or tell us about the supus.
Yes, supus are absolutely fascinating. It's a very traditional, it's been around for hundreds of years, really. But basically you would have families who would compile their family tree going back sometimes hundreds of years to trace sort of where their surname came from, how their family arrived in a specific area, and who's who in the family, really. The problem is that it's not an official document. It's compiled by the family at the end of the day. So there is an element of fiction once you go really far back in time, because everyone wants to say that they are descended of a famous commander or general or celebrity in Chinese history, but it's still really fascinating to dig into. And it's not the case that everybody necessarily has a zupu. It really depends on whether you have a family historian in the clan, in the extended family, like Xavier, who is willing to take on that effort of asking all of the older relatives who's who and things like that. Another thing to remember is that during the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s and 70s in China, a lot of these books were actually destroyed because they were associated with feudalism and old Chinese tradition. And this was a period in Chinese history where the Communist Party was really trying to cut ties with everything that was ancient and that was holding society back. So sadly, there are cases in which we track down the family of somebody that we're helping, and in the village, unfortunately, there is no book left because it was burned by the Red Guards. However, as Robert mentioned, there is a resurgence of interest in family tree and family history, even in China. So you do find a lot of people coming together to pool their efforts and recompile their history and republish their histories.
You talk about villages and clans, and I don't know that we have that kind of culture in Jamaica where kind of just everybody's just mixed up together. One of the questions that came to me is, when you look at China, when I look at China as an outsider, it seems very I don't want to use the word pure, but it seems just very Chinese. Like in the Caribbean, we're a melting pot, right? There's a bunch of different cultures. Everybody's mixed up together. But many Chinese Jamaicans, Robert, you may know Luki Chong, who is a very good friend of all of ours. He says he's black. His mother is black. His father, I believe, is Chinese, but he says he's black. When you connect, or when you're seeing these connections happen in China, are they open to the variety of ethnic backgrounds that their family is when they step outside of the mainland China? Robert?
I think they are. There are many cases where mixed race Jamaicans were sent back to China for education when they were in their 5 to 15-year-old range, and then brought back to Jamaica. They were accepted, and they were given the exposure to the culture to set themselves up. There's several who went back and became fairly prominent in China itself, and in almost, I think, actually, in all the cases that I'm aware of where I've been involved in linking people back into China, when they find their family there, they're welcomed with open arms. In my case, I was so touched when my third and fourth cousins gave me a tour of the village and pointed out where our respective grandparents had lived side by side, etc. It was very, very warming. And the hospitality, the open acceptance, just the sheer happiness to find family. I think even more so in China than in most of the rest of the world, family is regarded as important. Even if you were the black sheep or on the other side of the world, it's still important to know you are part of that family.
Uncle Hermes, how did you feel when you realized that you had siblings that you could get in touch with? What was your first thought?
They are very. He's very happy because you share the same mother and you are all a big family.
After the research that you do comes the travel portion, right? And when before COVID, you arranged travel for people to go and connect with their families in China. Paula Madison, I believe, is one of your more high-profile clients. Am I correct? Yes. Okay.
Yes. We didn't actually organize her trip, but we have worked closely together in the past. Yes.
Okay. All right. So when you see, she's one of the more high profile ones. So her China connection story is the one that I had heard first. But in your years of offering this service, or Robert, in your years of seeing people reconnected with family in China, talk about one of the more moving reconnections that you have seen or experienced.
Oh goodness. That's really difficult, because everyone is a little bit different and everyone processes the reunions differently. I went on my own roots trip as well. I took my dad, I think it was 2 years ago, and my father's third generation Chinese Malaysian, and he'd never been to China. I was the tour guide. So that obviously stands out in my memory. But in terms of people that we've helped, I always go back to one of our earlier clients who was from the USA via Dominican Republic, and she was really eager to find out about her grandfather. And she went on this journey with her mother, I believe, and they had two very different ways of processing it. So she was very much into the intellectual side and trying to understand, historically, what were the push and pull factors that made her grandfather go to the Dominican Republic, whereas her mother was much more emotional and engaged on the day of the visit. And they went to pay their respects to their ancestral graves on the top of the hill. And it was only afterwards that the main lady that we were helping, not her mother, she sort of, everything started flooding back to her after she'd returned home from China. So yeah, in my mind, every story just really makes me so grateful that I'm doing this job, really, because I think it's so important.
Right. All right.
In my case, I think, the personal experiences trump everything. So mine was deeply emotional. Even if I've seen other people, get emotional, even on the phone when we were talking to Xavier and he was getting the news, you can see the looks of happiness or tears, etc. But when it hits you, that's definitely the most impressive and memorable version.
Xavier's experience of Thanksgiving, meeting your uncle for the first time with the whole family on a Zoom call. Tell us about. I'm going to let's actually show a clip of that interaction right now.
This is a sister. This is Kalita. Did she have a question?
No, Xavier. I just wanted to show her.
Well, especially because everybody says that she looks most like him.
So please let him know that everyone thinks Auntie Kalita looks like Hermidi.
So Xavier, what was that like, having your whole family, all of you who have been trying to figure out who Uncle Hermidi is for all of these years, and all of you actually sitting together on a call and talking to him? What was that like for you?
So that was totally amazing. It was exciting. We had, the participation we had from the family. We were supposed to have a reunion this year, but with the situation with the pandemic, we didn't. And so we had planned to have a Thanksgiving Zoom call, and we were discussing this like about 3 months. But this topped the cake. Having Uncle Hermidi and his 2 daughters on, in fact, he had the other kids on the phone so they could see, was just totally amazing. You could see the excitement, especially on my cousins, his 2 daughters, on their faces. I think he was kind of processing some of it. He smiled and he was dressed up, and it was just totally exciting talking to him. There was a translator there, and so she would translate for us. But it was just great being able to finally talk to this person that, again, some of us thought it was a myth, And in fact, one of my cousins who is into mixed martial arts, I didn't know he also kind of had it in the back of his mind. He has a tattoo on, I think it's his arm or some part of his body, Hermidi Shimkong. And so we told Uncle Hermidi this, and he was just smiling, that day. So I just want you to know there was 2 of us that visited China already. Julian, who is not, Kirk may have visited China too. Kirk may have visited. Julian, who is on the call, who's not on the call, visited China, and he also has Hermidi Shimkong tattooed on his arm.
牙买加那个汉物给那个名字纹到了身上，希望以此来找那个找他是不是？对，他这个人写，那这样没关系。Yeah, they are so touching and they say it's okay. They are very grateful and they are so glad that we could finally meet again. And thank God for that.
And then to top it off, he's a war hero. I mean, a celebrity in his own right in his village. It's just an amazing. Didn't expect this at all. I was just blown away. He's alive. He has children. We found him. We plan to visit. We all agreed the next family reunion is we want to do it in 2 years, and so on. And it was just
Very nice. Xavier, another question for you. Your wife has very strong Asian roots in her. Did she have any kind of reaction to your search for your Asian roots?
So we have, all right. So let's put it this way. Some people are into this, like me. I'm into this. She's kind of
been there, done that.
and I think, let me say this. I think part of it is when you have a family behind you, kind of supporting you with the reunions, with what you do, it gives me the push. Right. Her family, it's very difficult trying to get a lot of the information from her family, that is. So she has asked question because her grandfather is from China, from the same correct me if I pronounce this wrong, Chloe or Robert, from the same Guangdong province. And so this has prompted her, and she has started to ask questions, but she's not been getting back a lot, but we're going to keep prodding along the way. And now with this experience, I kind of know a little bit more of what to look for versus going, because again, I was just going after my uncle's name, but I needed to have stepped up a bit and go to his dad's name and find items that are in Chinese and so forth. So we have a journey that we have to start her on, because I told her if I'm going back to China in 2 years, I don't want to go back just for one relative. Right. I want you to go back to take this long trip and kind of have some additional information if we go, when we go back.
Very nice. So she can now connect with Robert Hugh at the Chinese Benevolent Association. I keep tongue-tying over that. Chinese Benevolent Association and Chloe at My China Roots. Let me just ask you before we wrap up, Chloe, what is the cost of this service typically?
Mm-hmm. It really depends on what you want to do. If you want the full package where you get a digital report with pictures of your village and your relatives, that cost can go up to about $2,000 US. But for smaller projects where you just want to locate a record or locate a person, it can be considerably less. So the best thing you can do is just contact us. It's free. So
it's mychinaroots.com, yes?
Yes, that's right.
Let me say this. It's going to sound like a plug, but I reached out to them again, finding an article online and then reaching out to them. They were prompt, very professional, detailed information. Let me tell you, A+. And the thing is, I can't say enough. This is more than worth it. More than worth it. Connecting with another relative, and they just did a tremendous job. I can't say enough. Just the look on my relative's face, the comments I'm getting today. We spoke to him yesterday on Zoom, and just the comments I'm getting. We wished him happy birthday. His birthday's next week. We all sang happy birthday to him on the Zoom call. You know, and he was appreciative, and just that is more than worth it. And you know, I'll say to anyone, these guys know what they're doing. They really do. You know, and I can't thank you all enough, Robert, Chloe, the team. I can't thank you enough. It's just amazing.
That smile is worth it.
Totally worth it. Your reactions, everything, totally worth it. That's why we do what we do.
Right. And I just point out that any advanced work you do will pay off in spades. When I first went to China 20 odd years ago looking for the village, kind of as just a spur of the moment thing, we ended up looking in the wrong place for the wrong village with the wrong translator on board. So it was a complete fiasco. And it's only through the years that we found, as you did, other little bits of information that got us to the correct village. And even initially, I was able to make contact with some of the relatives there through electronic and other media before actually getting there and setting up a proper visit, etc. But a lot of things can now be done in advance electronically. Our database, as I said, is online. Some updates and other subsidiary information you may have to contact us to get. We are actively trying to find as many of those Zupus as we can. So at the moment, we've managed to locate 3 of the Zupus for the 3 main Chin villages. So we probably have the genealogy of maybe 3/4 of the Chins in Jamaica going back 2,000 years, which is, to me, is absolutely amazing. I've managed to trace my hue line back to about the mid-1700s, but I can't yet find the Zupu going back further than that. But that's my bucket list, one of my bucket list items.
Guys, thank you all so very much for hanging out with us this evening and sharing these amazing stories. We are going to close it out with Xavier and his family singing happy birthday to Uncle Hermidi.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Uncle Hermidi. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much. And bless you.